passionne. Ça sent réel.
Did two men with a trunk get off here by any chance?
Oui?
Which way did they go?
That way, monsieur.
Oh, where are we anyway?
Guise. France. Let me help you, monsieur. There is a taxi at front, and a hotel nearby in Rennes-le-Château.
Appreciate it.
Alright, so there's another one where I forgot to zoom in on the size. But we're continuing, but as we can see, people are leaving on mopeds. But before we get to that real quick, it's amazing how I've played this a number of times and I just noticed something while I was rewatching the intro. When Gabe comes out, he's coming out of car number 3. Now, the number 3 is often considered biblically to be of high significance, with like the Holy Trinity and stuff like that. So I wonder if him coming out of car 3 was intentional or if it was just a random number that they put on the car. But knowing Jane Jensen, I would say it was intentional. Alright, so now, coming back, the time has shifted and now people are actually starting to use mopeds. And when you talk to the guy, he pretty much tells you, hey, you know what, all the mopeds are rented out. The only one I have is this like really like purple god-awful one that Gabe would not be caught dead seeing. But when he looks at the thing, he does notice that someone has rented a moped, someone that he knows. That's none other than Mosley. So, and now comes the part where essentially we're going to have to make a disguise to trick the guy. Since he knows what Gabriel Knight looks like, we're going to have to trick him into thinking that we are someone else named Mosley. So, this is where the infamous cat mustache begins to come in from. But per typical, since something has changed and now the tour has started, going to all the different areas, revisiting everything, seeing if anyone has anything new to say or if there's anything new to see, because oftentimes other characters will go and talk and you can overhear them. So in the previous talk, remember how I said you can't take the red hat until the disguise thing comes in? So now suddenly Gabe is able to take that hat, which again, it was there previously, but when you tried to take it, it would say, no, you can't. So that would be difficult for someone playing the game for the first time. And I do remember, not all the details, but I certainly remember eons ago when I first played Gabriel Knight 3 when it came out, how difficult that cat mustache disguise thing was. And these two are amazing. Probably, I said it in my other one, but probably two of my favorite characters in terms of how they interact with one another. But again, just kind of going through everywhere, seeing if anything has changed since the moped thing has started and we've seen people leave on mopeds. Now, one thing to note is, and you'll see it when I'm driving around, you'll want to start copying down people's license plates when you find out who is renting what moped. In the end, it doesn't really matter too much, but certainly cool to know whose moped is whose. Now, this is a part of where you're trying to do the Mosley disguise, and in order to do it, you need the peppermint candy thing. And then you need to buzz his door, but you need to do it when Jean is away. And then Mosley will come out from his room, and you'll be able to pickpocket his passport. Now, you will see, I think it was probably roughly around maybe 5 to 10 tries before I was able to successfully pick Mosley's passport. And you have to do it from a corner where he can't see you when he tries to get the candy. If you do it wrong, he just eats the candy, which lets you know the candy's the key, but now you have to keep doing it until you get it right. This was such a nightmare to pull off. And the thing is, if you do it wrong, he eats the peppermint candy anyway. So you've basically got to go back, get another peppermint candy, try again, and see if you can do it. And even after I got it, I'm not even 100% sure how I managed to do it correctly. It was just like trial and error over and over and over again of going up different set of stairs, you know, trying to come around the hallway in a different direction. And like, I couldn't remember if you have to do it before he leaves his room, after he leaves his room, like at what point is he eating this candy? But again, if you'd never played this game before, to know that you have to steal Mosley's passport like this whole disguise as Mosley thing is a very difficult whoops, he already walked by. A very difficult thing to try to pull off in this game. Even not just so much like trying to get the cat hair and the tricking of Mosley to get his passport, but overall just thinking that you need to do this and how you need to do it. There isn't a lot of clue here unless you buzz his room and you see that he eats the candy and you can pick up the candy, so you know maybe there's something to it. But definitely one of the more, other than Sydney, one of the more difficult puzzles in the game. And so you can see it's before he goes down. However, I've stepped too far, so he sees me. And if he sees you, he pretty much finishes the peppermint candy just like he just did, rather than dropping it, and then that allows you to pickpocket him. So, I mean, I do not know how Mosley is not diabetic from the amount of times I've tried to get this thing and he's eaten the peppermint candy. So in hindsight, you pretty much set the peppermint candy first before you buzz his room. But I guess one of the other things you do is while he's away, you can actually go into his room, which I thought was part of the puzzle, and you can take his jacket, because you're actually going to need that as part of the disguise as well. So even though it was messing up, I still figured out part of it. And there you go. You hit the sneak and he drops it, and then you can pickpocket him. So now we've got the hat, we've got the jacket, and we've got his passport. We're almost good. But what we need is every good disguise requires a mustache. And apparently this mustache is going to be made out of cat hair. So this is me looking around as to where this cat might be, because honestly I cannot remember where the cat was, like if it was like in a barrel or if it was in a crate. I just remember that the tape is required, and that's all I can really remember about this cat. So now I'm just wandering around everywhere looking for this cat. So here's this long random alley, which is very difficult to push the camera through. So it even seems like I can't go down to that alleyway. But over here inside we can get a water bottle, which we'll need for the cat. So it actually kind of works out that I accidentally went in there first. So again, we're going to try this alleyway, and it doesn't seem like I can push the camera over there. But the road is certainly open, so it looks like you can, but can't go over there. So that throws me off, and I just continue walking around looking for a cat, unsure of where I might find said cat. And about the only place I haven't gone is this alley, which suddenly I'm able to camera push through, and voila, there's the damn cat. So first we're going to try to just pet the cat. Because I was trying to remember, do you put like the tape on your hand and then pet the cat and that's how you get it? But no. Try to pet the cat and it goes into the door. Which seems like, okay, well, that's not it. Now we have a spray bottle. Let's try that. Let's go back into this alley that's really difficult to get to. And now we see that the cat has relocated itself up on the wall. So what you're going to do is you're going to actually put the tape on the door, which you technically would not know to do until you spray the cat, other than knowing that that's where the cat's going to run when you pet him. So we'll go over there, spray the cat. It gets mad, goes through there, and what you're going to do is get the tape. And sure enough, you now have a cat hair mustache. Cat stash. All right, now we're going to make our way back out. So we've got his passport as well, I should say. Now you have to combine the items to basically make the Mosley disguise and put them all together so that you can click on it and pretty much say, I'm going to be Mosley. Now the thing is, which I think is very weird, is you cannot change into the Mosley disguise until you're right at the motorcycle area, which of all the places you think he would see you. And so you flash the thing and he says, yep. And he says, well, which bike do you want? And you take the green Harley. Then you change out of your clothes back to the Gabe stuff and pretty much say, well, I better return all of Mosley's stuff before he realizes it's gone. And now in this map, you'll see a few things, but as you play the game, further areas will unlock, and you can see where Gabe is at by the flashing green dot on La Reine Chateau. And then you just drive around, and there is a lot of exploring here. And when people drive by, what you can do is you can actually click on them and follow them, and that will unlock more areas. And what you can do is once you follow them, you kind of figure out whose moped it is, and you can just start writing down mopeds. And then look, someone else just drove by. So now you can follow them. And if they don't really go anywhere, it'll tell you. So you take your notebook, click on the license plate, and it'll say whose license plate it is. And you'll put all this information in Sydney. Now there is, I think it's a bug, because I got Mosley's license plate when he uses the purple moped, and I was never able to put it into Sydney. And I don't know if that's because I got it before I was supposed to, or what the deal is. But because Mosley is not a quote-unquote suspect in Sydney until later, because clearly Mosley's up to something. But anyway, this is Wilkes. He's got a thumper matter thing that thumps on the ground. And Gabe makes fun of him about using this thumper because it reminds him of the one movie where the worms come out from the ground like tremors. So Gabe makes a few remarks. And then when you try to tell Gabe to go in the cave, he says, no thanks. Last time I went into a cave, I got hairy palms. And he's actually referring to Gabriel Knight 2, in which he sees the hunter inside the cave devouring flesh and then thinks he is the werewolf. So now we have Wilkes' moped and kind of know what Wilkes is doing. The voice actor for Wilkes is great also, by the way. And so this is the tour guide. No need to get her plate because everyone knows it's hers. You can read all the signs and see where they're at. And it's cool because they have the French at the top and then the English at the bottom. So you can see she's got some equipment. You can talk to her. Get some information, do some flirting. Which is funny because while graphically, if these characters were to appear this way, she is obviously a very attractive redhead. But the night shift person at the hotel, more attractive visually, and so is the person who works at the train station. To me, they are more attractive females than the tour guide, but no, that's neither here nor there. If you try to get up there as Gabe, you won't be able to. Grace, however, will be able to make it up there. And there are some areas that are connected. So up here, we can get up here, look around. This will be important after we get a set of binoculars, which we have. And we can actually look around and zoom in. So what I did is I started off with that orange thing in the ground and just kind of circled around. And then you can zoom in certain areas where it'll tell you. So basically I just would click it, do a full 360 of the view, bring the binoculars down a little, do a full 360 of the view and see where I was able to zoom in and see people doing stuff. And so you can see he has a pair of binoculars, and he's looking from the chateau, the place at the top, which is curious. You got to wonder if he's looking at Gabe, looking at him. So anyway, there's this area here, but also if you side trail down from here, there's another area you can actually access that is also accessible through the motorcycle through a different path. And that would be this way. So you see this house with this guy. There's like a hole in his window. Man, that hole in the window threw me off because I totally thought you used the cup to hear it. But then what good would that do you? I mean, you're literally there with your whole head sticking next to it. It is interesting that later on, Grace will also pick up a glass to be able to listen to people's doors. And that might be where I missed something, but I went around to the doors a few times and I'd listen, and you could hear stuff like people snoring or people taking a shower, but there was no conversation that could be overheard that was relevant. And so you talk to this guy anyway. So he's up here kind of away from everyone in his house, locked away. And he happens to know a lot about the Templars, the treasure. And so you kind of get a feeling, definitely with his books that are around and his maps, there's also more to this guy. So this game definitely has things where people are far more than what they appear to be initially. He has a string of conversation you can talk to him about. So he'll pretty much just say, hey, you know what? I know a little bit, just out here studying, not really more to it, just like my privacy kind of thing. And he seems to know a lot. So we're going to head back to where our motorcycle is parked. We're going to go up the other side of the path. And I think there is something that happens here, but other than that, there is not much to do at that location until there's something there to find. So another one where I forgot to zoom in on the date time, but now date time has moved forward, so new things are available to find and see. So we're going to go to this train station first, try to confirm and see. I think she's more attractive than the tour guide. But anyway, we're going to try to find out who took what train, because you can talk to the people and find out what time they took their train. And you'll discover through her that there is no train that came through a specific time that one of those people told you, where they said, oh, I came in at like 8 o'clock at night. I don't have a car, whatever. And you learn by talking to her and looking at the schedule, no such train came in at that time. And there's this guy here who's good to talk to because he'll have information. He was working when the guys who supposedly thumped Gabe left with the crate that they had. And he has information pertaining to that, including the car, which way it went, but you do have to pay him. Which really is not a big deal because Gabe actually doesn't use money for anything. It never shows like how much he has. So paying him is not that big of a deal in the game. Now we just go to a different place, find a different moped, and we can find out whose moped that is by heading up here, and it's Mosley, which we could have figured out because originally the guy was I forgot. Mosley talks about how there was a mix-up with his moped, and the guy accidentally rented his moped to someone else. But anyway, so you come over here and you can talk to Mosley. So now you know that's his moped that's down there, and you'll be able to grab the information on the moped. But once again, I am not sure because I grabbed it before Mosley was put in Sydney as a quote-unquote potential suspect, that I was actually never able to attach Mosley's license plate for his moped into Sydney. And I cannot wait to comment about the Sydney computer because not a fan. So go to your notebook, grab it, and you write down it's Mosley's. And one thing I did love about this game is that it wasn't like Police Quest where you had to actually physically drive the vehicle. You just had a map and you click on it and he drives to it. I think that was one of the weakest things about Police Quest, was having to do the actual driving. I get that they probably thought it was fun, arcade sequence, whatever. Was not fun. So I appreciate that in Gabriel Knight 3, the map is just clickable. And I know Wrath, if you are, Wrath, if you're watching this, you would probably also just tell me, well, you can do the same thing in Quest for Glory 2, where you can just buy the map. Once you make your way there, then you can just teleport where you want to go. But it's walking through the city before you get the map in Quest for Glory 2 that I cannot stand. There's a whole thread on the Sierra help forums between he and I. And since I haven't talked about it yet, if you haven't already, you should head to sierrahelp.com and head to that site. There is a forum there also, which is at forums.sierrahelp.com, recently changed. Highly recommend going there, checking it out. Great community, very helpful. So if you have issues running into any games that are Sierra related, there's a community there to help you. Collector has made several installers that can be used to run these games. He's also made some CD list installers. So if you have the game, for example, if you don't buy it on GOG or Steam or whatever, and you have Gabriel Knight 3, he has an installer that will install Gabriel Knight 3, and you don't even need any of the CDs after you install with the CDs. So it creates a CD list play. So definitely worth checking out the site. Again, that is sierrahelp.com. And now I'm back to Gabriel Knight 3. From this vantage point, we are able to talk to him, as well as using the binoculars, and we see Mosley and the tour guide kind of in the same area bumping into each other. And we also write down more mopeds. And again, we can follow them. And here's Wilkes with his thumper. Now he's in a new location, talking about how he's kind of figured out he's going to be the one by using echo technology or whatever it's called, that basically it pounds the ground, sends images up to the satellite. Satellite basically casts down and sees anything that's underground. So I'm assuming that's how it works. So right now, doing a lot of wandering around, trying to figure out what to do next. And not so much what to do is to, because right now it's very much in the information gathering area. But now it is 6 to 10 p.m. Another one where I forgot to zoom in. So day 1 is about to end. And now you can go basically get the other mopeds if they're not in. And you get here, and Grace is here. And she's here with these 2 guards for the guy whom hired you. So if you've not watched the intro, Gabe is essentially taking care or looking after, trying to find an abducted child. And these two guys show up saying, hey, you know what, we're going to take this over. You know, it's highly sensitive. You're not doing what you need to do. We're just going to do it. And spoiler alert, it does not go well for those two. And so now Grace is here, and Grace is going to help. And in the background, whenever you see the table here in a moment, you'll notice, there it is, you can see Sydney, the most dreaded portion of the game. In terms of entering data, it's not that hard. But for Grace's part, when she's trying to figure out the riddle, it is that hard. So now things are definitely happening since we're now at the 6 to 10 p.m. Something happens in that room later that I try with the maid. And here's, I think her name is Simone, who, once again, I think is more attractive than the actual tour guide. But there we have it. So that's Simone. You can ask her a few questions. She'll also be there to talk to later when one of the guests seems to have disappeared. So, and again, so you can see in the check-in book where that guy and the two women have swapped rooms. And then here's Wilkes chugging it up. Talking about his echo thingy and about the treasure, and so he invites the guy over because he doesn't like to eat alone, and they basically hang out. His machismo cracks me up. Alright, so now we see those three guys who left Gabe's room, and now you can tail them. And so they're headed into the graveyard, but also the priest lives in the graveyard. So what you do is you click on that tomb, click on the sneak icon, and you're going to overhear these two talking to the guy, and there's the whole thing about the Templars and everything that starts unfolding about, was he responsible for kidnapping the guy's child? And you know, and he's like, no, that's something we would never do. And he's saying we, so now we know he's part of an organization. So, and see how Gabe at least moves around the tomb when they leave. Grace will eventually sneak over there and do something later. She doesn't even bother moving. She just stays there. So I thought that was weird, how at least Gabe was smart enough to move, and Grace just stays there quiet as a cat. And she's not spotted. So these guys get in the car, drive off. So you can see. And you can follow. And remember, I said that path goes into two different locations. So once you push the camera through, you're not going to go up to the top of the vantage point. But if you look in here, you'll see he's not there, but there at the car. So now to figure out what we have to do to make something happen, because they're not just going to stay in the car. This is the part that threw me off of, do I need to sneak somewhere? Where do I need to sneak? Like, what are these guys doing? And like Gabe's standing right out in the open. But what you have to do is kind of sneak over here by the tree. And you'll see them walk up. Now, this handshake, I sped it up so it's hard to see. But they do it twice, and there's a reason for it. You need to know the handshake. So when that handshake happens, make sure you make note of it. And hopefully you didn't not make a note of it. And miss it, because you definitely need that handshake. So now we know they're inside, and I'm just trying to see if there's any way I can overhear what they're saying, what they're doing. But they don't go to that room with the hole in it, so I just leave. I'm gonna go back to my bike. Go back to Rendition Tool. And as you can see, there are some mopeds missing here. So we know that is Estelle, I believe her name is, and I forgot the other woman's name, but the two women, that's their moped. So we've seen them drive by, so we can determine that that's theirs. So now let's go see if that priest guy has anything to say. Does not appear he does. There is this, and so you can kind of budge that window open, but it looks like it's stuck, so you'll need something to open it further. We'll get that a little bit later because we don't have that yet. We're going to need the maid to be around for us to get the next thing that we need to get that window open. Again, just doing a lot of walking around, seeing if anything has changed now that we've seen a few things. The guys have left in the car. We followed them to that guy's house. We saw them do the secret handshake. And as you can see, things do happen. So now we see the tour guide and my two favorite women and characters talking with the tour guide about the treasure and whatnot. Gabe doing his thing with his pheromones. If you've played the game, you'll see that he talks to Mosley that the reason he gets the women is he just gives off pheromones. So now we see him, he's walking up, he goes into his room. And when we go inside, we see Mosley and Grace. Oh, Mosley. And so he's just talking about how he's catching up with Grace. You can ask him about the treasure, because we've learned a few things, so Mosley will have more to say. And he says, you know, I saw these guys do this handshake, so you have to mimic the handshake with them. And so Mosley and Gabe are going to go out, do some looking around, maybe a drink or two, and Grace will take over from there.